Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to tell you the story of our arrival in Canada today. You have to understand that Colin had come out of the army, having served his country well, being rather badly wounded too. And the government had kindly sent him to university afterwards. When he finished his courses, he tried to get a job. No. Nobody wanted a newly hatched statistician. Nobody. He looked and he looked and he looked, and there were no jobs. So we decided that Michael had been quite successful in settling in Canada. Why didn't we try the same thing? So we cut a long story short, we did. But we needed a sponsor. And Colin had a Canadian friend that he'd met at LSE, and that guy's mother agreed to sponsor us on one condition. She would sponsor us on the condition that we never contacted her. Oh, we agreed to that because, why not? Everything was going to be paradise when we got here, so why not? So we traveled by sea with Andrea. You're not quite a year old. Not quite a year old. And her mother, myself, being 2 or 3 months pregnant. You think we were insane? We were. So we landed at Montreal, and this had all been arranged before. We got the train to Toronto, which was the business hub. And it struck me about an hour maybe before we got to Toronto. I don't know how Colin was feeling because we didn't discuss it, but I realized that we had a bit of money, not much, and we had to have somewhere to stay that night. That was the first thing we had to solve. We knew of a hotel. We did some research that looked after immigrants and stuff. But my mum had more sense than I did. And she had contacted friends who had relatives in Toronto. And this guy worked for a big meat packing plant. He was high up in the office staff. I can't remember what he did. And so about 20 minutes before we landed in Toronto, when my feet were getting increasingly cold, the guy came down the hallways looking for Mr. and Mrs. Beale. And I thought, oh my God, they found out. But no, we were being greeted by an important businessman, red carpet and all. It was unreal. This nice gentleman greeted us, was very kind, took us home to his family. We were more than welcome. We had dinner and, got to know each other a bit. And we were put up for a couple of nights, and it was just great. But we had to have, we had to settle ourselves. We couldn't stay with them forever. So this gentleman took us out to look for somewhere for us to live. And we found an apartment for rent near High Park. So it was an okay place. And so we moved in there and gave ourselves a month. We had a little bit of money. We had enough money to last a month. Let's put it that way. And so we gave ourselves a month for Colin to have a job. No question of my going to work because I had a 1-year-old baby, or not quite 1-year-old baby, and I was 2 or 3 months pregnant. So my working was not considered. So we gave ourselves a month for Colin to get a job. A month of, I was going to say it was a month of hell, but it wasn't really, because we always had hope. He would go out every morning and look for work and come back in the afternoon without a job, again and again and again. But we knew what we were going to do if he didn't get a job. He would get a labouring job, because there were plenty of jobs for labourers digging the subway. Now you've got it historically centred. And as I remember it, it was the day before he was going to go dig the subway that he got a call from the TTC asking him to come in for an interview because they could use his skills in the office. So he went for this interview, and by golly, he got a job in his field, something he knew. So that was great. But we didn't want to go on living in a Toronto apartment forever. We wanted our own place. So after a few months, I can't remember how long, I remember I was getting more pregnant all the time, we settled on a cottage in Fairport Beach. As far as I remember, I think we paid about $6,000 for it, you know? And there we settled, and Colin was working in the offices of the TTC, and we had enough money with one thing and another to get by on, but it was definitely getting by. And of course, we were new immigrants with no real idea what we were getting into. Canadian winter. The sellers assured us that the space heater in the hall would heat the house. They lied. So it was an iffy start, to put it mildly. He managed to get a ride from a neighbour into Toronto every day to work in the office. So we had a bit of money coming in, but it wasn't enough, I'll tell you that. And anyway, so time went on, and the pregnancy became more viable, and we found a doctor, the name of Bill Tomlinson, who was operating out of Pickering, and he accepted me as a patient. And in February of that year, Kirsty arrived. As far as I remember, we took the bus into Oshawa, which was the only hospital available. And I was registered to have a baby there and stuff like that. So Kirsty was born, all was well. We took the bus home, which was probably not in the plans of our medical team, but she was fine and all was well. So we lived in Fairport Beach for several years. We were happy there. We had very little heat in the house. We did create some. We had no running water. We flushed the toilet with pails of water. There was a well up the hill, and Colin would go up that hill with buckets every evening and get water for the day. And I think of it. So bathing was interesting. We had a big water heater, which we put on the gas stove to heat the water to have a bath. No, wash down. How we managed, when I look back, I don't know how we managed, but manage we did. And so actually we were very happy there.